Who's hiring and will wages rise? Well, Manpower Minister Tan Leng discusses employment trends to look out for. China's Xi Jinping warns US Joe Biden against playing with fire over Taiwan. And a giant screen falls onto performers in Hong Kong, injuring 2 dancers. Good evening, you're watching The Big Story. I'm Haryanto Diman. Subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you will not miss an episode. Companies in Singapore still hiring for now, but signs are pointing to a slowdown next year. Manpower Minister Tan Leng tells The Big Story that he sees resilience in the labour market. Between April and June, total employment increased by more than 64,000 at a faster pace compared with the first quarter. Now I sit down with Dr. Tan to discuss the outlook for jobs in Singapore. Minister, with total employment expanding in Q2 and we are now a month into the third quarter, do you see this momentum or trend continuing? And on that, are workers also seeing their wages rise to keep up with inflation?
We are at we're at about 99% of pre-COVID, which is 2019. So with that, there has now it's resulted in our resident employment situation to be very, very tight, meaning that today I think we are seeing in the months ahead, the next few quarters, a slowing down of resident employment figures, ostensibly because they are already employed. But what we will be seeing would be a rise in the non-resident employment rates. The next half of the year, you will see a lot of events happening. F1, we've got quite a number of International World Forum coming here. And as a result of that, you will need all these staff coming in. Now, in many of the sectors, for instance, like in construction, in manufacturing, even in the services part, these sector jobs, these sectoral jobs, actually they're harder to fill. The vacancies are harder to fill to begin with, even before the pandemic itself. So, because of the fact that they're harder to fill, especially by our local workforce, our resident workforce itself, then the only way to grow is to have non-resident workforce coming in to grow that particular segment. But having said that, of course, there is still quite a fair bit of uncertainties happening around the world, right? I mean, I think you know ostensibly that the Russia-Ukraine crisis is not going to end anytime soon. It appears to be quite protracted. You still have the Sino-US trade tensions. You face the threat of new COVID variants. And on top of that, we are also dealing with a very high inflation. So hence, while businesses, they are optimistic and so on, but we are still, we are encouraged, obviously. We want to support them. But at the same time, we also want to make sure that we want to temper or manage those kind of optimism with a healthy dose of what's happening around us.
Minister, you talked about the challenge of inflation, right? And then again, on the bit about wages, are you seeing, workers' wages rising for workers as well in the months ahead?
I think that it's inevitable. MTI has put growth, I think, at the lower end of the 3 to 5%, and I think you can see that even in terms of the inflationary pressures, we may not have peaked. Now, this increase in terms of wages and asking wages and so on is not unique to Singapore. In fact, in many countries, not just within the region but globally, you will find that many countries are now really putting up feelers and raising the bar in terms of hiring talent. In my travel around the world, many people have told us that they like the the reputation, the credibility of workers who worked in Singapore because they are more assured of the caliber. And as a result of that, they're also prepared to pay higher. So we are plugged into the world. We cannot afford to isolate and insulate ourselves from the rest of the world. So what's happening around the world in terms of uplifting of wages will directly have an impact on our people here as well. And talent, global talent is one of those things that the entire world is competing for.
Let's talk about the non-resident employment. Now, the reopening of borders in April has meant that workers, particularly in construction and manufacturing, that they've been able to enter Singapore. Does this mean then the labour crunch in these industries has ended, or is going to end?
The labour crunch is progressively and sort of narrowing. What we are seeing now is a transition. The last 2 years has been difficult for everyone. Now, many of the non-resident workforce that has been based out of Singapore have not had the time to go back to their home countries, to the source countries, for breaks, for family bonding time and so on. And so they are taking the opportunity during this time of the easing of border restrictions for them to go back to reunite with their families, chill, relax, before coming back to work. So that transition is such that while there are new workers coming in, at the same time, the existing workers, some of them have gone back to go on home leave. So we expect that in the coming months, that crunch will ease because once they finish their leave obligations, they come back. These are life passes. That means they have not given up their work pass, right? They've just taken home leave, and after that they will come back. So I think the labour crunch will certainly ease in the months coming ahead.
So we saw job vacancies hitting a record high in the first quarter. But given the uncertain economic outlook both here and globally, you mentioned that as well, the Russia-Ukraine war and so on and so forth. Will companies think twice about adding to their headcount for the rest of the year?
Thus far, there are 4 very broad sectors that are still growing. Financial services, the ICT, Infocom technology, professional services, and healthcare. So I think that in all of these industries that we have actually been very long on, I think it will continue to grow. Retrenchments have hit an all-time low. They've gone to numbers that we have not seen. I was saying one of the statistics since 2015. Companies are sort of telling us that they are still hiring in the next few quarters. I think we can sort of safely say for the rest of the year, I think we're on a good trajectory. Now, beyond that, I think economic cycles and so on, our projection is that, given what we know today, is that there will be a slowdown. Whether we will, go into a recession, I think at this point in time, it is still out there. The risk is low, but we can never say never.
You can watch the full interview with Minister Tan See Leng on our YouTube channel. Find out which industries are actively hiring and where wages are headed. We also talk about the issue of workplace safety. And Minister Tan says that most of the recent fatalities at work involved experienced workers. Workplace safety will be debated in Parliament this coming Monday after 31 work-related deaths were reported in just the first 7 months of the year.
One would have intuitively thought that it's because of new workers, young, inexperienced workers coming in to fill up these jobs and so on, that is contributing to the speed of accidents. However, we find that actually many of the accidents, the fatalities, actually involve people who are very experienced. So I think that in itself tells you that it is not a function of the training or the level of experience. I think some of the factors could be the fact that people are ramping up because there have been a period of time where they have not, because of all the difficulties and the restrictions and so on, Now that they are ramping up, they're trying to catch up for lost time.
In other news, an in-person meeting between Presidents Joe Biden and Xi Jinping is on the cards after both leaders agreed to begin arrangements for it during a scheduled phone call last night. But most of their over 2-hour-long call was spent on the Taiwan issue, which has emerged as a serious point of conflict amid a possible visit by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. According to the China readout, President Xi Jinping warning his American counterpart against supporting Taiwanese independence, saying those who play with fire will be burned. I hope the US can clearly see this. The US's account was less specific, with the White House press secretary telling reporters that there is no change to policy.
I will reiterate here, there has been no change in policy. On Taiwan, the president underscored that the United States policy has not changed, as I just stated, and that the United States strongly opposes unilateral efforts to change the status quo or undermine peace, stability across the Taiwan Strait. So we have been very, very clear on that. There is no change in the policy.
Ahead of the next general election, Malaysia's 209 MPs have unanimously passed the landmark bill to curb party hopping in a bid to stabilize the government. The bill could be gazetted as early as September, and it introduces several amendments to the constitution, including triggering a recall election or by-election every time an MP quits or switches political parties. The need for such a law follows defections at both federal and state levels, with Malaysia seeing 3 governments in over 2 years. Here's our Malaysia correspondent on what this new bill means for potential election candidates and their parties.
I think largely it will definitely impact how candidates choose their parties, because before this, there will be some sort of freedom about candidates going into elections and then switching allegiances after elections. With G15, that landscape is definitely going to change. Even those contesting as independents because they are unhappy with their parties or something, they can't win the seat and then choose to support another party or go back to their parties after the election. They will lose their seats. In terms of parties' leaderships, I think they will now look very carefully in their own party constitution and also how they select the candidates. Because if a party, an MP, chooses to go against the party directive in terms of voting in parliament or something, the AHL does not punish the particular MP. The MP does not lose the seat for going against party directives or simply for being sacked by the party. So I think party leadership will take this opportunity to look to mend ties between different camps in parties, in a lot of the parties that are currently going through leadership crisis, including parties like UMNO, which is the biggest party in Malaysia. So I think the bill will definitely play a big impact in how the timeline for G15 is already. So as we know, the bill will be gazetted most probably by September. Prime Minister Ismail Sabri has already said that he is looking to implement few more reforms after this bill. So which means the next parliament sitting only comes in around October, end of October, early November, which is when the next budget will be debated. So if they're looking to put in budget and more reforms, we are looking at GE no sooner than, it will be later than end of this year. At the soonest, it will be November or December this year, or it could be pushed to next year as well.
Instagram is rolling back several recent updates in response to a user backlash, which included celebrities who say the app is trying to be too much like TikTok. And so Instagram will pause tests of full-screen photo and video posts and temporarily reduce the number of algorithm-recommended posts in user feeds. Hong Kong authorities are investigating why a giant video screen fell during the Mirror boy band concert, injuring 2 male backup dancers. Now be warned that the footage we are about to show is sensitive. Last night's accident happened at the Hong Kong Coliseum, a government-managed venue which is 23 meters high. And according to initial findings, one of 2 metal cords suspending the screen had snapped. the screen landing directly on one dancer, apparently striking his neck. The South China Morning Post reports that he is in intensive care while the other is in stable condition. In Formula One, this year will be the last time local fans can watch Sebastian Vettel compete at the Singapore Grand Prix, as he'll be retiring at the end of the season. He's won the Singapore race 5 times and the World Championship 4 times. In a video on his newly created Instagram account, Vettel cites a shift in goals and wanting to focus on family and interests outside the sport as the reasons for his decision. He's previously commented about how his career has increasingly been in conflict with his personal life. His longtime rival Lewis Hamilton is leading the flurry of tributes that followed Vettel's announcement, and Hamilton says, quote, "It's been an honor to call you a competitor and an even greater honor to call you my friend." Those are our top stories today. Visit straitstimes.com for more news and our YouTube channel for more videos. Subscribe by clicking the red button below. I'm Haryanto Diman. Have a good weekend and we'll see you next week.